heart is so full, and just a truly incredible experience for myself and my family.
Awesome. Chad, you want to tell us about your experience?
Yeah, I echo a little bit of what Jimmy said. Rick grabbed us both prior to the event, and he said, at some point tonight, this is going to hit you guys, and you're going to realize what of a big deal it is. And honestly, it really hit me when I saw my kids walk out on stage. I was like, whew, oh boy. And now I knew it was going to go one way or the other. It was going to go reasonably well, or the wheels were going to come off of it at that point. And thankfully, they did a great job, and Brooke did an amazing job. And to be able to stand up there and talk to a room of your peers and, you know, speak from the heart like what Jimmy did and what I was able to do, and Donnie, it's just an honor. It's an honor to have that court. It's an honor to be in this situation. You know, I'm just proud to be here, be able to do it with Jimmy.
Awesome. We're going to go ahead and open up for media questions. Once I call on you, please start with your name, affiliation, and again, please speak up so we can hear you when we start here with Jordan.
Jordan Bianchi, The Athletic. A couple questions. Going into the milk, where were you guys at? Kind of, you know, what was your mindset going in, and then what changed for you guys coming out of that? How you look at things?
So I'll set the stage and Jack can jump in. 2004, we lose the championship to Kurt Busch by a spot.
6 points.
A spot basically on track. I guess 2 spots on track, depending on the old point system and how that played out.
Yeah.
05, we're in the championship running again, racing Tony Stewart for the championship. We have an issue with the right rear tire in a crash, and Tony Stewart has a pretty poor night for his standards, which left us in this headspace of like we had a shot at it. So in our eyes, we had 2 opportunities slip away, and you just never know how many looks you're going to get at the championship. So that frustration of being so close was really the foundation of the frustration and anger. And this was, I don't know, maybe the week after Homestead, and we were just angry and mad, and both of us had spoken to Rick, and evidently acted like a baby or a kid, and it led Rick to that to the idea for that meeting, and he called us in.
And then, what do you mean that? What changed? What did you guys talk some more? Did it just walk out there and everything felt good?
I would say that after Rick truly demanded us to eat cookies and to drink the milk, because okay, fine, we'll break the cookies. Like, no, eat the cookie. Will you take a bite? I said, no, take a bigger bite. Now drink the milk. Oh boy, this is.
Or drink some lime juice. That's exactly what this is.
Spike punches.
And so Rick keeps pushing us to get into the experience, and then gives us both a chance to kind of air what's on our minds. And then we honestly got into a real conversation in many ways, and no joke, we left that meeting and changed our course in how we worked, the way Chad, and I don't want to speak for you, but and I'll let you do this because I keep taking the microphone right now, but we went in a different direction. And then 06 takes place, we come out of the gate and win Daytona 500, win our first championship, win the next championship, on and on and on. So I think there was a lot of weight in that meeting that we had.
Yeah, there was. It was a really tough time for me. We had such a steep trajectory, and I really thought that we should have won the championship by then. I mean, we had a very good opportunity to win the championship in 2002, our very first year. And when I sat in that meeting, I'll be frank, and I'll tell you, I walked out of that meeting and I remember it vividly. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed at the fact that Mr. Hendrick had to sit us down, 2 grown men with the opportunity of a lifetime, and we were sitting there just letting it go away. And at that point, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gonna take the advice of a man who has mentored us and give us an opportunity and change the structure of the 48 team. And we worked diligently that whole off season of the 2005-2006 year. We worked on giving the engineers more skin in the game. We worked on putting more emphasis on the engineers, on the car chief, Ron Malik, giving everybody a little bit more tangible interest in the team as opposed to me doing it all. I was building the shocks, I was setting up the cars, I was putting the bodies on the cars, I was doing it all prior to that, and we had a tremendous amount of success. Yeah. But it was very selfish for me to go through that. And I was embarrassed after I sat there with Mr. Hendrick, and I came out and I vowed that I was going to do it differently. And trust me, I made a lot of mistakes after that, right? But that did set the foundation of where we were going to be in the future.
It's interesting you think you were selfish because from my standpoint, I thought you were overworked.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I guess there's a combination of both, but I just thought he had the shortest fuse. He was so overworked. He was covering so much territory. And then we got comfortable delegating to different folks, empowering more people. I think it gave him a much wider bandwidth to really run and operate the team on a different level, and then the championships just started coming.
Last question. How do you each look at the legacy of the 48 team?
Didn't you ask me that earlier? Yes, you did. Okay. I'm not going to answer that question because that's on you. You know, I don't think we can. Maybe you can. I can't. How's that? I can't tell you what the legacy of the 48 is. I can't. I think that from my perspective, that's something that you all will put out there and write about because that's what's going to be comfortable for you. I can't tell you that this is what we did and that needs to be the legacy. You have to determine that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to remember. There's another question I used to be asked all the time, and I had a similar answer, but I would be struggling to give an answer, honestly, because it's tough to talk about yourself in that respect.
We've got quite a queue we got to work through here. Jerry Jordan, John, Lee, Barry, and Zach.
Jerry Jordan kicked the tires on that. Jimmie, for you, for 2002, your rookie year, it was pouring down rain at Texas Motor Speedway. Jeff Gordon comes up to your motor coach. There's fans lined all on the fence. He gets you out in the rain to sign all these people's autographs. As a rookie, what was going through your mind? You know, you just got into the Cup, and you're out here in the rain with Jeff Gordon, and you stayed there until every single fan got that autograph. Do you remember that moment?
And I was a big jerk at the end of my career. Wouldn't do anything close to that. It also makes me think it had to be like 98, 99, I drove the curb. I had Jamie in push car at Homestead. Brad Knopfsinger drove the car, and there was only a Brad Knopfsinger suit. And I wore that thing with pride. And people would say, "Hey, Brad, come sign for me." And I'd run over and sign.
Did you say to Brad or Jimmie?
Jimmie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they called me Brad, and I'd run over. I'm like, "Man, I'm in NASCAR. I'm signing autographs." You know, Jeff was obviously a great mentor for me and guided me in so many different ways, personally and professionally. And I do remember that day, and just having the thought of I'm in the big time. Like I used to be the guy on the other side of the fence watching this. I wasn't necessarily an autograph chaser, but as I mentioned in my speech, I was everywhere all the time just trying to pass out business cards. And I remember going to events and watching Dale Earnhardt Sr. walk in, and Rusty Wallace, Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin, just these guys, and the fans just all over them, you know. And so to be in those moments, especially in those early days, was a big aha moment.
Chad, for you, you mentioned Tony winning the championship, right before y'all went on your run. He also won the championship right on the bookend of it.
Yeah.
That year, what was it like coming off of that 5-year run?
You know, what was interesting is Tony came up to me that day in Homestead after we didn't win, you know, and the streak was broken. And he grabbed me, which was really interesting because, you know, obviously you guys understand the celebration that happens, and you know, Tony's out there taking photos, and they're going through inspection with the car, and he came back and he was hanging out with his guys for a little bit, and he grabbed me, and Tony's pretty gruff, as you know, right? Like, you know, he kind of grabbed me by the collar and he said, "Hey, I want you to understand something. You will never understand how important what you guys have done is until the day that you are not a crew chief anymore." And truer words were never spoken, because I didn't get it. At that point right there, I was so dejected and so disappointed. But Tony's a unique character. Like, he doesn't offer words of encouragement unless he kind of like really likes you, right?
Means it.
Yeah.
And also means it.
It means
Yeah.
it. And he was basically saying, like, look, man, you guys have done something that's really special, and you need to make sure you understand that. And he knew at that point that I had no idea. And I always respected him for that.
John.
John Newby, NBC Sports. So when future fans go and look at your career, apart from all the success on the track, what do you want them to have as a takeaway? Is it ingenuity, tenacity,
Can I go?
Yes.
First, I want people to think, if I'm going to talk on Jimmie's behalf, he's the best race car driver that I've ever seen. He sometimes doesn't qualify worth a damn.
You're being very generous.
Sometimes doesn't
Never.
practice worth a damn. But when you put him into a race, if you want to see somebody that's got racecraft, he's the man that has it. He sees it globally. He understands what's happening with the environment. He understands what's happening with the racetrack. He knows how to pass the car in front of him. He has been the pillar. And what people today do, like if you look at what Jimmie was doing in the 2000s, that's when the Casey Canes and the Kyle Larsons and the guys where they would start to explore outside of what is the racing groove. Jimmie was doing that, and he was doing it maybe not always at the extreme, but he was doing that way before anybody else ever was. That's, in my opinion, the racecraft of this man is higher and above more than anybody else I've ever seen in this sport. And then for me, hell, I don't know, just I don't know.
It's tough to talk about yourself, but I think that something that stands out, I think that fits for both of us. We come into the hall today based on, essentially 19. Well, everything spoken about was our time together. It was 17 years and us working together. But both of us, very humble beginnings, and fell in love with a sport that we chased hard, and dedicated everything to it, and it's offered a lot to us, it's provided a lot to us, and it's not over. We're both now in completely different capacities and doing different things, and he's way older than I am, and I'm kind of old, and we're still here doing it. So, it's amazing to commit to something to love, be so passionate about a sport, and it provides so much to you, and so to be something in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lee?
All night long, we kept hearing 5 championships, and I mean, the 7 is remarkable, but everybody comes back to 5 straight championships. When you hear that time and time again, I mean, you mentioned
It could have been 7 in a row. It could have been 7 in a row.
Could have been.
Shoulda.
Should've.
Sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
Shoulda.
It's just, you hear that and you hear it from the type of people that were mentioning that. I mean, does it make it sink in more what that meant? I mean, you guys lived it, but, still that's going to sit up there, probably will never be broke.
You there?
Go for it. Can you remember the 5 years and what went on?
Not even a little bit.
I know, it's tough.
Not even a little bit. Jimmie mentioned it, and not every year I was there Monday morning, first thing at 7. Some hours drunk.
Only if I could talk you into staying.
You're right. But it was such, it was so critical to get going, because I don't think people understand. The worst thing that you can have happen to you as a competitor is win a championship, if you're concerned about the championship the next season. You are so far set back, because everything that you do, everything that you build, everything that you're trying to create to win that current year's championship is taking away from what you're trying to prepare for the next season. And when you're all the way down to the wire, that's what your full focus is. And everybody else in the industry, whether it be 40, 36, 43 cars, those other competitors are focusing on next year. And what always happened to me is I would get a huge state of panic right after we won a championship, being like, we have got to get to work. We are behind. We are months behind. And we have got to make sure that we get going quickly, and we've got to make sure we've got ourselves in a position to get out there, win a race, get ourselves to make sure that we're solidified into the championship by winning a race, or whatever it may have been at that point, depending upon the points format. That's the way that I lived. I think I mentioned it in one of the deals. And Jimmie knows this better than anybody. I was terrified. I was terrified for the majority of my career to lose the 4018. I was scared to death that if I didn't perform, that the 4018 would go to somebody else, and it wouldn't be mine.
I think that was in the 05 Milk and Cookies discussion. Yeah.
Certainly.
So, one other question. When I think of you guys and was there for all of it, you came back from adversity like no team I can remember Darlington, I guess you were down 2-3 laps, probably Dover, another, and you always seem, if you you weren't gonna win, you at least had that top 5, top 10, but you would have a shit day and just be able to come back, and it was miraculous watching what you were capable of.
Jimmie always called that vintage 48.
We, longer the race, the more tricky the circumstances. And it wasn't every weekend and every year, and I think later in our career, just pressure in many ways affected that quality we had. But in our sweet spot, we were never rattled. We just dig in. Sometimes we come back and win. I'd crash in qualifying all the time, or just qualify terribly, and second pit stop, or leading the race and leading the most laps and spraying champagne. It's just interesting when we were in that flow. Like it was just something so special.
Can you break Hale's record this year?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a good one. I want to believe, but if it doesn't happen, that's not why I'm back out on track. I'm out there because I just want to race. I truly want to race and be out there. I think we're more strategic in my choice in events this year, where strengths will exist for our team and our manufacturer, and I'm running a lot of mile and a halves. I'm going to Kansas twice, much more intentional in that. Last year we were focused on trying to help our road course program, and then with the family tragedy, we just put everything on jack stands and just took some time off. So who knows? Be a hell of a thing if we were able to win, but it's not why I'm out there. To chase that record, I should say. I'm out there to win, absolutely. But to chase the record is not why I'm back out there. Yep.
Barry.
Barry Richmond, Piedmont Broadcasting Corporation. Jimmie, I had a chance to interview Jeff Gordon his final year in the Busch Grand National Series, and he talked about the next year of driving for Mr. Hendrick, DuPont sponsorship. He said, we want to have a good showing, but we don't expect to set the world on fire. Obviously, that was an understatement. So, what was your perspective going into it? Obviously, you did some great things, but what did you envision at that point when you started in the Cup Series?
I think I probably had very similar messaging. And then as 2002 season started, I remembered the 3 races that I ran in 01 in Cup, and I never finished on the lead lap. I think I crashed in 2 of the 3. I think my best result was deep in the 20s. And I thought, man, this just isn't a step up from Saturday to Sunday. It's 5 or more steps up. And so I was truly concerned and had great fear as we started my first full-time season. Thankfully, Chad built a fast car because we wouldn't have made a Daytona 500. I made a mistake in our qualifying race itself, and we would have gone home. And then in the race, I'm not sure I made it to the halfway point. I was wrecked out. But
No, we finished in the top 10.
first race?
Yep. We crashed 6 times and finished in the top 10.
I just remember the crashing. Just remember a lot of crashing.
Yep, that's true.
Okay. But I'll never forget, we raced Atlanta early in the season, and all day long I could see the leader. I just ran in a good spot. Nothing overly flashy, but just a rock solid performance. And at that point, I felt like things were going to be okay. I didn't expect to win a handful of weeks later in California, and that just sent things off its axis. But you just never know, and it's just such a big step from Saturday to Sunday, and there's so many variables that truly come into play to have a driver, crew chief, or a team succeed. And looking back, it's easy now to kind of plot all that, but at the time, it certainly wasn't easy. Yep.
Zach.
Zach Sterniola, NASCAR.com. Chad, for you, you mentioned Ron Malik earlier.
Yeah.
I think guys like Cliff Daniels and Greg Ives, people on the 48 team outside of you two that helped you guys find success. Who were some of the guys who stood out, and why were they so different? I know every hand that goes onto the race car makes a difference, but who stands out and why were they so different to what you guys were able to accomplish?
Yeah, it was easy to single out Ron because Ron and Jimmie worked together before I ever worked with Ron. And Ron wasn't the car chief when I started in the 48 team. Jason Burdett was, who was your crew chief.
Yeah.
for the 2024 season. So we had gotten through, and I think we went the whole season with Burdett, and then I wanted to make the change to Ron Malik. So Ron's an easy one to pick because he was tireless in the efforts that he put into it. There's a tremendous amount of names, and like I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not going to go through and start naming names because there's just too many. But there's so many guys. That's probably one of the things I'm proudest of right now is as I walk through the garage, there's so many crew chiefs and so many engineers and so many people that are mechanics and in pretty influential roles that were on the 48 team at some point in time. And that's really neat. That's really cool to think that, one, we had that type of influence that people wanted to hire these guys and gals, and two, that maybe we actually did know what we were doing. We were able to coach these guys into leadership type roles. That's something I'm really proud of.
Kelly Crandall.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Chad, for you first, back when the lead up to the Hall of Fame voting and voting day and the announcement, and then when your name was finally called, you and Jimmie both spoke about how you basically had to be convinced that you were going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Since that day to tonight, how has the journey been getting comfortable with this, embracing it, the fact that you were going into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I mean, he's easy peasy, right? Like, everybody knew he was going straight away, and
I knew you were going in, I just didn't tell you. Yeah, I found out in the elevator coming up.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So I just didn't know. The people that were on the ballot, there's so many great, talented people that contributed to the sport, that if I didn't go in, it wasn't a big deal. But what I had really set my mind on is I wanted to be there for Jimmie. When they called his name, I wanted to be there to give him a hug and tell him I love him and that's how proud I was of him. So I was really in a good spot no matter what happened. And then after it happened, obviously it's a flush of emotions, and you kind of get warm and you're just like, man, this is kind of a big deal. But then thankfully shortly thereafterwards, you're just racing again. Like, we're racing, we're doing what it is that we do, we're going to the racetrack every single week, and it didn't really start hitting me until honestly last week. And last week I started to get, I guess you guys started putting banners up on around the hall, and I was starting getting snapshots from so many people with the banners like, hey, just passing your banner, hey, just look at this. Oh, you're looking for my car today because I just parked on such and such street, And then I started getting text messages from people from way in the past, and that's when it really started to kind of kick in with me. And then today, obviously, to see all the folks out there. One of the coolest things, quite honestly, was I was laying in bed with Brooke, and I'm going through emails and stuff, because it's been a bit of a flurry this week, and I got an email from Roger Penske. And what a cool deal to get an email from Roger Penske, like the captain, right? And he's talking about leadership and dedication and, the way that we conducted and did our business and all of those things. And I'm like, wow, that kind of hits home. And that's what we wanted to be. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to try to be what everybody else wanted to be. And, that's what I'm probably proudest of.
For both of you, because you both touched on about today becoming real and when it hits you and Rick giving you that advice. What is the moment, though, making that walk to the stage and then standing there and looking out in front of everybody? Because Jimmie, you said it when you got to the podium. Okay, I think now it just hit me. So
Yeah.
For both of you, what is that moment like, going from getting called up there by your families and then actually standing on that stage?
It was easy sitting in the audience, watching my family, and just having great pride for the strength Shani had to be there, see my girls up there. And then I walked up and we rehearsed that whole, we all did, everybody rehearses you up, you see your family, escort them off. And then when I turned around, there was a collision of pride and I hate public speaking that hit me all at once. Now I gotta read for 8.5 minutes. God, I hope I get this right. I hate public speaking. Hate it, hate it, hate it. So took a couple deep breaths, and then I think I had I'm not sure how it looked, but I had my most comfortable experience up there, and I didn't feel like I flubbed anything or messed anything up. And I guess preparation, which this guy's always told me, preparation gives you confidence, and I was prepared for my speech for the first time in my career, standing at the podium, and I think it played through. Did I answer your question? I don't feel like I did.
You did great. You did great. That was great. That was great. You did great.
Thanks.
Am I supposed to answer something?
If you want to.
Oh.
I'm not gonna tell you you have to. You're Hall of Famer. You're checking out. I'm not gonna say you have to.
No, it was good. I had a good time. It was good. I enjoyed it. I know that I screwed it up and I flubbed it up and almost said a couple curse words and things of that nature, but I really enjoyed it tonight. It was anytime, I think I mentioned earlier, you can have such a huge room of people that you respect, whether it be from you folks in here to the people that we compete with, to the people that own the sanctioning body that we race within, and you're able to talk and hold court with them. It's pretty awesome.
All right, two more. Peter Straw.
Peter Strada, TSJ Sports. You both have some experience with the next gen car. What would the vintage 4018 have looked like if you guys had to tackle the next gen car?
We'd have whipped their ass.
Next question.
Next question.
We're gonna end with my man in the middle here.
Kevin Schwartz at Stock Car Facts TV. Question for you, Jimmy. Question for you, Chad. Totally different side of the spectrum. I'm gonna say this as nice as I can, Jimmy. Leading into Cup Series, you had what, 2 or 3 ASA wins?
Two, yeah.
One Xfinity win.
Yep.
I mean, I know Jeff Gordon came to you, approached you, but what kind of salesman are you to come in and win races for you? Look what I did over here.
I think I have a story that will be helpful, but before the story, I will say that I thought much the same, and certainly once I had the contract signed with Hendrick, I was annoyed by. Granted, we didn't have social media then, but there certainly was, an opinion of what the hell is Jeff Gordon and Rick Hendrick thinking, and I've always operated best with a chip on my shoulder and under pressure and a variety of those scenarios. So it served me well and played out great. But through passing out all those business cards and being as grained inside of Chevrolet as I was, there was just great momentum, and my diligence in showing up, shaking hands, having conversations with people was serving me very well. And I got to a point where we were losing Altel. They were going to sponsor Ryan Newman, and the Herzogs came to me and said, "Look, we can't run next year without a sponsor. You got to figure something out." So I went out and started shopping around. Chip Ganassi was starting his Cup program, and he was interested in me taking over or driving the singular 01 car. And I had some good conversations going on with Hendrick at this point in time. I had a letter of intent from Hendrick. Chip comes in to Charlotte. We sit down at a meeting, and we had some expectations. Maybe sign the contract on the spot. I was like, I'm not comfortable with that. So all right, I'm gonna head back to Pittsburgh. So he leaves. I amid this meeting, I think that I've just missed an opportunity, a legitimate Cup contract. But I've got this letter of intent from Hendrick. We're like 2 years out from when I would race, but we'll see where this goes. So I leave and I call Alan Miller, who I recognize tonight, and I walk through this scenario and I explain to him that I'm pretty concerned. Probably just had a Cup opportunity with Chip go away, and he stops me and says, No. You were just offered a legitimate contract. Let me work on the Hendrick side. I'm like, wait a second. You're going to spin this in a way? Yeah, I'm going to spin this in a way. When 4 days later, I had an actual contract from Hendrick Motorsports because I had a Ganassi contract offered to me. Although he put it back in his briefcase and got on his airplane and flew away, technically speaking, I had a contract offered to me. And so there was just an outside force and many elements that were swirling that take place. And I'm not sure that element still exists today for drivers and how they end up in a seat. But, my parents could only afford dirt bikes. And then from that point forward, there was this other thing that was going on around me. And it connected me to so many great people that believed in me. I think my personality and who I am carried through, and people continued to believe in me and give me the nod. And it just snowballed all the way to where it has. So I'm not sure I totally answered the question, but there was that thing going on.
That would have been interesting when Dodge year to that.
Yeah.
Chevy. And then Chad, for you, maybe to bring it full circle, you know, from the Chicago area, Rockford's a big part of your
Yeah.
upbringing. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on?
Funny, Jimmy won a race there and I never did.
What are your thoughts on the news about Rockford?
About it closing down? You know, it's sad because I think that short track racing is the core of our sport. I know obviously when you get to the Cup Series, you know, it's marketing and it's the show and we all understand it's still competition, don't get me wrong, but there's so much higher levels than what you have at the grassroots side of motorsport. But it's what happens, you know, it happens across the United States and it's a different era. One of the things that I hope that I can help kind of contribute to, and I think Kyle Larson does a really good job of this right now, is bringing that back into life. You know, what is the short track racing? What is the core of motorsport? And it's sad to see Rockford Speedway go. I'm really disappointed because when we were up there in Chicago racing last year, I wanted to scoot over there and watch the race that they had going on Saturday night. But unfortunately, the 9-car crashed and it was raining like cats and dogs, and it was just a disaster. So I couldn't get away from Chicago to make it over to Rockford Speedway. So I never got to see that place again. And you know, it was a pretty neat place. A lot of legends raced at that racetrack.